President Biden is expected to leave for Israel later today, where he is set to meet with both Israeli and Arab leadership. The trip comes at a dangerous time in more ways than one. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House. Ed, what are the expectations for this visit?
Well, Anne-Marie, good to see you. Good morning. The president is set to leave later today for what promises to be just a crucial few hours on the ground. He stops first in Tel Aviv tomorrow for meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and members of his war cabinet. From there, he's set to visit Amman, Jordan, where he'll huddle with that country's King Abdullah, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and Mahmoud Abbas, head of the Palestinian Authority. Biden administration officials say the U.S. isn't dictating conditions for Israel's military operations, so there's no guarantee Israel would delay its ground invasion of Gaza. 2,000 U.S. troops are now on a heightened alert to be ready to deploy to the region in a support, not combat role. They'd provide intelligence, logistics, and communication support, and some would beef up security at U.S. installations throughout the region. The safety of hostages, missing Americans, and civilians in Gaza very much on the mind of the president and his team, so it's likely to be a big focus of his meetings with the leaders. If all goes as planned, this trip is set to be the second time this year the president visits a country under siege and one in which the U.S. military is not directly involved or in charge. Remember, Anne-Marie, he visited Ukraine in February, but it is quite rare for any U.S. president, throughout our history at least, to do something like this.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that, but can we go back to the, estimated between 500 and 600 U.S. citizens that are among the roughly 2 million people trapped in Gaza? You said that, these talks may not necessarily delay an invasion by Israeli troops. What is the White House doing right now to provide some sort of secure escape or protections for its citizens?
It's talking. It's talking to the Israelis. It's talking to the Egyptians. It's talking to Qatar, which has the direct line with Hamas's political leadership, and doing what it can to ensure that Rafah crossing there in the southern part of Gaza Strip opens up so that people can come out if they want to, and humanitarian aid can go in, because, of course, that part of the Middle East is on the verge of running out of water and other critical supplies to keep the roughly 2 million or so residents alive, frankly, and nourished. So it remains a big concern. We've heard the president, of course, Secretary of State Blinken yesterday in his meetings with the Israelis convey those concerns. And it appears to be part of the reason why, at least for now, the Israelis have held off on a more aggressive attempt to go in there and take out Hamas leadership.
You talked about how rare it is for a president to go on a trip like this. Prior to the president, it was the defense secretary, the secretary of state, all in Israel. Yes, this is a tremendous show of support, but is it even more than that when you have such high-ranking members of the administration, all the way up to the president, making sure that they get to Israel to talk to these leaders?
Well, we saw similar outreach ahead of, or as the Ukrainian conflict was on the verge of beginning, and once it did, obviously you remember that the defense secretary and the secretary of state visited Kyiv. The vice president eventually went as well, and then the president. That playbook worked for them, right? It helped rally the Western world to Ukraine's side. It boosted the president's numbers here at home and conveyed his seriousness of taking on this issue and making sure the world was rallying with the U.S. to the side of Ukraine. In this case now, you're seeing it again. The president going to the region, meeting with Israeli leaders, meeting with members and leaders of the Arab world to ensure that they understand the U.S. position. And it comes as other European leaders, like the German chancellor, are set to be in the region and make similar meetings. So perhaps they're either following the president's example, or they all just know that by showing up and conveying how seriously they take the relationship with Israel, and how they know the Arab leadership needs to also step up and respond to this in various ways. It hopefully conveys the seriousness of this and how closely the United States is watching it.
Normally when the president goes to another country, it's months and months of planning, and that's when there isn't a war going on. I can't imagine the security and sort of political risks that are being taken to get the president to Israel.
Well, the security risk is obvious. There is a conflict going on just to the south of Tel Aviv, and the risk of flying in there obviously is quite significant, but given that there have been security personnel in the region for the last several days, given that both the Secretaries of State and Defense have been there, there is some sense of the situation on the ground. Israel's also a place the president was just last year, and that the Secret Service knows well, so there's that. The political risk, obviously, is significant. What if things were to intensify while the president was on the ground? What if he goes and both the Israeli and Arab leadership doesn't really listen to him or take his concerns to account as the conflict unfolds? Then he'll have come back empty-handed and have gone basically for a photo op. So plenty of risk. But the White House seems convinced that by going now, going quickly, and going before hostilities really intensify, the U.S. at least has an opportunity to make a point to ensure that things go somewhat, that at least there's an accounting for the civilian concerns and the fate of the hostages. And look, this is a region that this president and his team have purposely not spent as much time focused on, at least at a high level in recent years, as they shift towards China, as they ended the Afghan war, as they got to work in Ukraine. That's not to say, though, that there aren't national security officials who've been pretty closely watching all this, and many of them in that photo right there. This is a chance now for the president to step in, amplify the U.S.'s attention and concern and recognition of what's going on, and potentially help smooth out the arrangements and see if, for example, that deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia can't come together, or if there isn't more regional cooperation that can come from what was a completely unexpected and horrific set of attacks.
Right. Ed, thank you very much.